Stephanie, and today we're going to look at the steps to cutting your own mat. What I'd like to start with is the equipment itself. So let's take an inventory of the types of things that you're going to need to get going with your mat cutting. First thing that you're going to need is a mat cutter. And you can see I have one here that is set up with some different features that will help us when we get ready to cut the mat. Before we cut the mat, we're definitely going to need a tape measure. There's some measuring involved. You're going to need your pencil because we're going to use that as a tool. I like to keep some extra blades handy because the more times you switch your blade out, the cleaner your cut's going to be, the better the mat's going to be cut. And I have also made for myself, out of poster board, some L-shaped pieces that I like to use when I get ready to think about how I'm going to frame the image itself. So those are the tools that you're going to need to get started. So let's start with the actual image itself, because one of the first steps that you're going to do is to find out the size of your board and the size of the opening in the middle. I have a drawing here that was done by one of my students, and we're going to use this as our demonstration on what will be matted today. And I have a mat that I know that I want to work with, and the size of it is 12 inches by 16 and a half. And I want to use that size, and I find when I work on mat cutting, it's very important to me to have an image. You can see I've got the outside of the mat itself. I'm going to figure what the inside's going to be, and I'm going to draw a picture of this. I'm going to make a little formula so I can be sure my math is right. Math is not something I excel at, so I try very hard to visualize the steps and to also give myself some visual cues. So starting out with 12 and a half by 16 and a half, I'm also going to look at my piece itself. And with a 2-inch border, I'm going to recognize that I have the opportunity to put a hole in the mat. That center opening is going to be 8 by 12 and a half. And let's see what that looks like. See if that's something I'm comfortable with. I actually think that's going to work out great. And I'm going to go back to my math formula. Draw the outside of the mat, the inside, the opening 2 inches all the way around, and as if you'll notice, I take that outside mat figure, I have to put 2 and 2 together to make 4. I'm going to minus 4 from 12, that gives me 8-inch opening one way, and 16 and a half minus 4 is going to give me 12 and a half. So when I get ready to set up my mat on the back, I'm going to be working with 8 inches by 12 inch as the opening and 2 inches all the way around. The next step is setting up the mat to be cut, and I want to show you first a couple of features on this mat cutter that makes it very easy to work with, and I get a good solid cut that's at a 90-degree angle. As you can see, this mat has a place that the cutter goes right on the track. There's some little feet, but this fits right on there so that the cutter fits on the track. It also has a start and stop feature. This little line that you can see on the back of the mat cutter is exactly where the point is when it goes into the mat. So I use this on the track, and it is going to give me a beveled cut. And this is my cue for starting and stopping, and I'll show you this again when we get this set up. The other feature that's very nice with this mat cutter is it has a bar here that gives me a chance to set my mat cutter. Remember, our 2 inches is what we were working with. I'm going to set this at 2 inches. You can see it's simple to use. It slides back and forth. These little knobs loosen it and tighten it. It's set on 2 inches. And what that helps me with is I'm going to take the back of the mat, place it down here, and I'm actually going to have 2 inches from the outside to the inside that this bar is going to make for me. so the tool itself is going to help me. I'm going to take my pencil, and on the back I'm going to create a guideline that's 2 inches from the outside in. And since all of my outside border is 2 inches, take my pencil, go all the way around, and what I've created on the back is the opening size. And one of the key things for me at this point is going to be able to stop, take your measuring tape, and be sure it's the size you need, which is 12 by 8. And that's exactly what I have. So I know I'm ready to get started cutting because I have checked the size. Now that we have our mat penciled out the size, we're going to be ready to do the cutting. And I haven't made any changes with the bar itself. As you can see, as I lay this on there, it's going to be right against that pencil mark. I'm going to set up my tool on the track. It's got these little feet that fit right in there. And as I mentioned before, I have a guide point right there. That's going to be my start and stop guide. So with that line and my pencil line lined up, I'm going to push very strongly this piece here that's pushing the blade in. I'm going to press down on this bar so that the mat doesn't move, and I'm going to just glide this down and make my stop right where my pencil mark is. Lift this up, and I'll have my first beveled cut. Now I'm going to be very careful to turn my piece, always going in the same direction. Again, here I'm starting with my guideline, pushing the blade in, pulling it back toward me, and stopping at my guideline. I may have done a little fussing there. Moving in the same direction. Oops. Each time setting up my guide. Stopping at the line. And moving the mat in the same direction. Then you can see this falls right out, and what I'm going to have is a piece of mat board that has an opening 2 inches all the way around the outside and with a beveled edge. And let's see how that works with our piece. Our image that we were working with. It's going to fit right where we want it. So in review, let's remember that when you get ready to cut a mat with an image that you have created, you're going to first need to start with the mat itself. You're going to need to measure what you have with the outside of the piece of mat board, figure what your inside dimensions are going to be and how that's going to be with your image. You're going to use that figure to on the back of the mat to do your outline, and then that outline that you've created in pencil you're going to use for guides as you cut your mat. So I look forward to you finishing off your projects in a professional manner with your mat cutting. Thanks for joining me.